your host, Mimosa,
and co-host Kareem.
Welcome to Sometimes We're Boujee and Sometimes We Hood, to healing, navigating grief. It's a podcast dedicated to exploring the complex emotions of loss, the road to healing, and the strength found in remembrance. Welcome to Sometimes We're Boujee.
Sometimes We Hood.
A podcast dedicated to exploring the complex emotions of loss, the road to healing, and the strength found in remembrance. I'm your host, Auntie Mimosa.
Hey, this is cousin Kareem. How y'all doing?
All righty. And whether you're in the depths of grief, slowly learning to live with the loss, or supporting someone in their journey, this space is for you. Grief is deeply personal. There's no timeline, no rule book, and no right way to navigate it. But through shared experiences, honest conversation, and moments of reflection, we can find comfort, understanding, and hope. Each episode will dive into the emotions that come with loss, anger, sadness, guilt, acceptance, and talk with experts, survivors, and those who have walked this path. You are not alone in your grief, and together we will move forward, honoring the past while embracing the present. It's the grief that comes with the world around us, feels like it's unraveling, right? So, when political unrest, injustice, media overload, war, racism, climate crisis, and tragedy are constantly knocking on our emotional door, how do we cope? So let's talk about collective grief, empathy fatigue, and how to reclaim your breath when the world feels too heavy. So that's today's topic that we're diving in today. So, when we talk about grief, we usually think of losing a loved one, but what about the grief that creeps in when we watch the news and feel helpless? Like when we scroll social media and feel rage, despair, or numbness. This kind of grief is often called collective grief. It's what we feel when we witness suffering, not just in our homes, but across borders, mass shootings, political division, injustice, climate disasters, and the ongoing trauma of racism. It all weighs on us and it counts as grief.
Yeah.
So even if you're not directly involved, your body and spirit still absorbs that pain, especially if you're not already grieving a personal loss. The outside world can feel like salt in an open wound. So how do we deal with it? All right, that's the question. How do we deal with it? So, to all of our listeners on all the platforms, that is the question. How do we deal with grief, with everything that we're dealing with in the world today? From social media, from political unrest, from watching the news. Like, how do you handle that? How do you deal with that? You have any idea?
Yeah, we gotta acknowledge that it's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. I think that a lot of people they sometimes feel if they don't acknowledge it, accept it,
Mm-hmm.
then it's not really happening. Like, oh, it ain't happened to me yet, so I'm not even gonna address it. I don't want to talk about it. Then I'm gonna bring it to me. Like law of attraction type. You
Okay.
know, and for me personally, I think that's wrong. That's not being empathetic. For
Mm-hmm.
me personally, I think that empathy is the main attraction, or it's the main
Right.
drive that you should have,
Mm-hmm.
being a spiritual person. And if you don't have empathy, then when something does happen to you, how do
Right.
you feel that how would you feel in that situation? Now you want empathy, and everybody turns their back on you because you
Mm-hmm.
willfully decided not to have empathy for other people in a separate situation that
Right.
might completely relate to you, but there could be a relation if it did occur to you.
Mm-hmm.
That action actually, or that situation did come to you. I think people just don't want to. It's too much of a thought process to put themselves in other person's shoes.
Mm.
And it's not about sympathy. It is about sympathy, but it's more about empathy. Because you're
Okay.
not feeling sorry for the person. You're trying to put yourself literally in that person's shoes. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
would I do if I was in that situation?
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. So to my, TikTok fam, hello, welcome in. Hey Jazz, thanks for joining us. Thank you to anyone that joins. Of course, you know your housekeeping rules, you know what they are. Take care of your coins, do your daily heart meets and all that good stuff. So today's topic is about grief and how to handle grief and what you want to do. Um, what you want to, how to handle it with all the political unrest and things that's going on today. So, as my co-host cousin Kareem stated, acknowledge empathy. So that's a question that you guys can answer. Like, how do you deal with it? How do you deal with your grief with political unrest and racism and listening to the news and feeling bogged down with everything that's going on? So definitely, acknowledge when it's okay to feel overwhelmed and you're not broken for feeling overwhelmed, right?
Yep.
Two, we ground, and that means turning off the news, logging off social media, and coming back to the present moment, even if it's just for a minute. Like, how many people meditate? I know that's part of my daily ritual to meditate. I wake up in the morning, I say my prayers, I go into meditation, and I actually do a guided breathwork meditation
Mm,
and to start my day. And that's a question
good.
for you all there. How many people start their day with meditation? Quieting the mind before you even allow the noise of the day to come in. A lot of people, as soon as they wake up, the first thing they do is turn on the TV to the news
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
watch the
They're
news.
addicted to it. They're addicted to it. They're addicted to the drama. And
Mm.
because they don't have the trauma, they addicted to the drama.
Ooh, say that again. If because they don't have the what I
Trauma.
say, they don't
Yeah, they
have the
don't.
trauma, so
They're addicted to the drama.
addicted to the drama.
Yeah.
Ah,
I
ah,
give you an example. I knew this dude. So I got one of my homeboys. He's from Kentucky.
uh-huh,
So we was over his house helping him fix his truck. And so one of his soldiers was like, I was like, how do you feel when you went down range? I mean, when people were shooting, he was like, yo, I didn't know that they were going to be shooting back. And I
mm,
was like, excuse me? He was like, yeah, I didn't know they was going to be shooting back. It
ooh,
was crazy. Like bullets were flying over our heads. You know, and then I
mm,
found out later from my man that, like, when he said flying over their head, he means like they were like 100 yards away. Like bullets were flying at the people who were shooting back. Like he was in a
ooh,
motorcade. So they wasn't directly shooting at him at the time.
mm-hmm,
They were
mm-hmm,
just shooting at the, you know what I mean? So it wasn't even like bullets would shoot flying over his head. But I asked him, said, so what do you think it was, like a video game? And he was like,
wow,
yes. And so he didn't have the trauma of like one
mm-hmm,
of my other boys who took his life, because he was the dude out there in the field
mm-hmm,
scooping up bodies, putting them in bags so they can take them back to base and rearrange bones and trying to identify um, the people, the soldiers.
wow,
And so after his like fourth tour,
mm-hmm,
he finally took his own life. I mean, not finally, but I mean, it was like traumatic. His
Right.
sister was like, "Please stop calling. I'm trying to still deal with his death." He took his life. Like, and I'm like, "What?" You know
That's
what I mean? And
right.
I'm like, I met his sister, and it was just like I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to help him through it with meditation and prayer, but
Right.
he had the trauma. But there's people here
Mm-hmm.
don't understand when these men and women go down range, they
Mm-hmm.
see things that you only see on TV. you know,
And
and
not
you
even and not even what's seen on television is not even like a
accurate.
quarter or
Yeah,
accurate of what they are really looking at or what they're
exactly.
experiencing being in the military, in the war, experiencing that stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Before and it's funny because like I was never in the military. I went to military school,
Mm-hmm.
but like I've seen people get I don't know unalived in front of me
Mm.
on dozens of occasions, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like seeing that. And you look at a movie. I remember with my wife now. We went to a movie, and I was like, it freaked out because I knew. And I was like, how you gonna pop somebody so close and then not get to spray back?
Mm.
And and then I realized I'm talking from experience, but she's not from that lifestyle. But
Right.
for some people, they don't understand the biology of a human body and what we're actually they don't think about it. And then when you look at that, like I just told you, like with my boy, he used to have to scoop people up. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, you get with a 50 millimeter, there's nothing left.
Right.
What I mean? It's
Right. Right.
like you're there's nothing left.
Right.
Except for the parts that didn't get hit.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe like the calves or the head.
Right.
But it's so many people don't have the trauma. They don't want the drama. But then on
Mhm.
top of it, they are addicted to the drama like a soap opera. And so
Wow.
now they want that adrenaline kind of kick. Like, oh man, I can see this. It's gory, but it's all
Mm-hmm.
good. And then when you dealing with somebody who has dealt with that emotional traumatic situation
Right.
and having to control their emotions to escape that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Now you come off sounded the person that they're talking to sounds jaded because they don't want to talk about it. And they
Right.
got to sit up there asking, why don't you want to talk about it?
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't understand. They've never been traumatically injured. Is that
Right.
a
Right.
simple traumatic injury? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. 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 I believe that works. So, let's take a moment here, and I think this is something I have not done on this podcast, and that is like to go into a meditation. So,
Mm,
I will say, let's take a moment and definitely like do some grounding in about two, not even a full minute. So, try this with me. So, take a deep breath in through your nose, hold it out through your mouth, release. Notice your feet on the floor, your breath in your body, and the space around you. Like you are safe right now, right where you are, and you are here. Now, with that moment, just the moment of pause, that matters. That calms the brain, that calms the mind, it calms the chatter and the noise. It reminds us that we are not just consumers of grief, but we are also allowed to protect our peace. Thank you all for joining the live. Thank you. Thank you for joining the live. And sometimes we bougie, sometimes we hood. We're talking about grief in this current society and having to deal with political unrest, racism, watching the news, all the doom and gloom that comes across the television. So that's where we are. And we're going to, shift in. We just took a moment to pause and ground ourselves, to take a deep breath and just to be, just to be.
yeah.
And I just want to say thanks to Jazzy. Hey, Pastor Big Sis, thank you. Hey, Jim, thank you. Um, the media doesn't always give us like the full picture either, right?
No, definitely not.
It often gives us like the loudest in the wrong one, right? So if you're grieving and every headline feels like another loss, it's okay to curate your intake. Follow social media that has pages that uplift and brighten your day. Balance your hard truth with hopeful stories, limiting the doom scrolling, as I call it, right? And ask yourself, like, what do I really need to know right now? Is it necessary to start your morning off, watching the news where they talk about five pew pews in the area that just happened and five people just unalive, became unalived as a result of this particular incident? Like, is it necessary? Is it necessary to start your day watching the news and listening to all the businesses that are closing, all the traffic accidents around where you live, all the, is it necessary to start your day with that?
Right.
And ask yourself the question, like, what do I really need to know right now? What helps me act or feel connected? And what just overwhelms me? Like, you have to ask yourself those conversations. You have to ask yourselves that. If you have to ask yourself, is it necessary to start the day? You
You
know?
gotta know your limit. I think what you saying, like you gotta know your limit. So like when stuff makes you anxious, when
Mm-hmm.
stuff just gets you on the side. And then what do you do once you hit that point,
Right.
before you boil over?
Exactly.
Like do you have that person to call? Do you have
Mhm.
a thing to do? Like
Do
I
you have
like
your
to draw.
person? Do you
Yeah,
have
I
your
like to
person?
dance.
Mhm.
That helps me get over. It helps me relieve. Sometimes I even like listening to music without lyrics because sometimes the lyrics can hit those buttons, and all
Mhm.
of a sudden your mood changes just to
Right.
hear the instrumentals and stuff like that. It's so relaxing. I mean, like like Cool in the Gang,
Mhm.
Summer Madness. I like that song.
Yeah.
It puts me in a place that this makes me think of summertime. Obviously
Mhm.
because of Will Smith, they sampled that, but
Yeah.
it's that good feeling. And that song is so old. And it's
Mhm.
just, but it's such a peaceful song. It has highs and lows of
Right.
good memories and good times. So it takes me away from those stressful days when I'm dealing with people who just don't want to act right.
Right. Right.
You know.
Exactly. So speaking of that, we're gonna shift into grief and social injustice because there's a lot of that going on these days.
Yeah.
And there's a specific grief that comes with social injustice. Like, if you're part of a marginalized group, right? Marginalized,
Yeah.
we know what I'm talking about. Black, brown, LGBTQ plus, disabled, undocumented. Chances are your societal grief is not new to it's not new to you. It's not new to us, right? It's not. It's new to us. And it's generational
Yes.
and it's layered, right? So some call it racial trauma, while others call it activist burnout. But either way it goes, it's very real, right? It's very real.
Very.
Um, and Jazz, you said it's not to what? What are you saying it's not to?
What do you mean?
See, I have a TikToker that comment. I'm
Oh,
not sure what she commented. Oh, she said it's not, it's very yes, it is. It's very real. Right. It is very real. Um, and you don't have to carry every issue alone. You don't. it's not your job. It's not our, I'm gonna say your job, but it's not our job, right? Um, it's not everyone's job to save the world by ourselves, right? It's not my job to save the world by myself. It's not your job, cousin Cream, to save the world by yourself. Like my TikTok family, it's not your job individually to save the world by yourself, but it can be done as a collective, right? Um, Rest is resistance, joy is resistance, and healing is resistance.
Mm. How do
Right.
you heal? How do you heal? How
Right.
that's my question.
Okay. So, yeah, anybody in TikTok land or anybody who's watching on Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, you have a comment on that. Like, how do you heal? You know, how do you heal? How do you heal from the like grief of racial trauma? How do you heal from activist burnout? Like, what do you do? And that would come from, I believe that on that end, that's where you may have to take a step back. So with that, you talking about activist burnout, that makes me think or go back to think about all of the early activists, right?
Mm.
Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, those are the big names, but Jesse Jackson,
Okay.
Marcus Garvey, Al Sharpton, even if we go way, way back, we keep going back further, you know,
Yeah.
how, like, the question is, do you ever heal? That's what Pastor Big Sis George, she asked that. She's like, do you ever heal? Like, what did they do? What did they do to reset, to take a break from the consistent marching, the consistent conversations, the consistent meetings with groups or organizations of individuals? Because not everyone in every, not, how do I want to say this? Not every single African American person was on the same page of peaceful protesting, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Because there are so many different personalities of people and so many levels. I don't want to use the word social class. I want to say levels. There's levels to people, right? Because there's so many different levels, because there's so many different personalities, and these leaders had to go and talk to these groups, because you had the groups that was ready ready for you to say something,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't turn the other cheek. You
Yeah.
had those groups, right? And
FAFO.
um, FIFO, right? You had those that were ready, you know, and then you had the ones that were, they were turn the other cheek, so to speak, and then you had the ones with touch me first. You got to touch me first before I do anything to you, right? And then maybe the combination. But just, I mean, I'm overwhelmed thinking about the fact that these, as leaders, going in to talk to all these groups of people to get them on the same page to heal. And especially like in that, right, new phase, same tactic. So let's think about today, okay? Everything that's going on today. I take a breath. I have to take a breath because thank you. It's almost unreal. Like this person in office, the that's leading this
Yeah.
corporation. I can't even say it's a country. It's this corporation. This person in that's the CEO of this corporation, right? Brown eyes, If you can, sorry guys, if you can interact with my people, please. With the not my people, but interact with the people that come into the TikTok, please. Um, I appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, but I think about where we are today with the un unsurety of tomorrow, of his leadership, right?
Yeah. His actions. I don't
His
even call it
actions,
leadership. His actions.
his actions, right? Because I feel like we going to hell in a handbasket behind this one. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Dude,
It's like a baby in a walker. Like a toddler in a walker, just
the
bumping into
toddler
things.
just stand up, just stand up stuff,
Yeah.
right?
It's just
You know. Um, but yeah, it's unrest. So what do we do? Like I said, I don't turn on the news in the morning. I refuse. I stopped watching the news a long time ago because I found myself being extremely angry throughout my day if I started the day watching the news, right? So I stopped because it wasn't healthy. It wasn't healthy. Um and I used to tease a girlfriend of mine, former girlfriend, a former sister friend of mine, and her husband because they watched the news so much. I think that was like in the top around the time where like a lot there was a blah, 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 blah. The cruises, the cruise ships were having a lot of issues with um
COVID.
no, it was way before COVID. I think this is when like one or two cruise ships had capsized,
Oh
and so
yeah, yeah, yeah. In Europe and stuff.
and
Yeah.
he was
Mediterranean.
like, "I'm not going on a cruise ship." And I was like, "Why wouldn't you take a cruise?" Oh, these boats. I said that was one or two. You know how many cruise ships make it to and from and across and back and forth to their destinations with no problem? You know how many? I was like, you're likely, more than likely to get into a car accident than to have your cruise ship go down. And I told him, I said, at the rate you watch the news, you're gonna be scared to breathe. You're gonna be walking around talking about because you don't want to breathe, right? Because you don't want to breathe because you watched the news because they've said that they may have put some kind of aerosol in the air or something in the air. No, like turn your TV off to start your day. Like look at the news when you come home, if anything. Like meditate. Do your, if you have a routine, if you pray, you believe in a higher power, a God, whoever, whatever you want to call your God, whoever you want to call your God, that's what you do. Because watching, and again, this is for myself. I can only speak for myself, right? Watching the news first thing in the morning. I get it. You want to know what the weather. It's after you do your meditation, quiet moment, take a whatever it is. After you do that, then go on check the news or whatever you want to do, weather, however, and then go about your day. But when you first wake up, the first thing should be to quiet your mind
Yeah.
versus allowing
Affirmation.
all that noise to come in to start your day. We are already in a state of unrest, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk action, like not the overwhelming save the planet kind of action, like the daily personal kind. And here are some grief informed ways to. I cannot talk, y'all. Can't talk. Can't talk. Why I can't talk today? I'm just, they don't want me to talk. They don't want me to. Somebody want me to talk. They just have me all tongue tied. But anyway, here are some grief informed ways to respond to societal chaos. Okay, that's what I'm gonna call it, societal chaos. So here's some grief informed ways to respond. I'm gonna hit the boing on y'all. Okay. Yes. Grief informed ways to respond to societal chaos, right? Okay. One, name your feelings out loud or in writing. Name your feelings out loud or in writing. What does that mean? If you're feeling sad, I'm sad today, or I'm sad at this moment, write it down. I'm feeling sad. Journal, right? These things, these beautiful, right? Journals, right? Can you see that? I don't. I need my green screen up. Okay, journal, journal. It's a great thing. Okay. If you're angry, say you're angry. If you're happy, say you're happy, and write it down. Okay. Yes, I got my signs. Connect. Call a friend, join a support group, or even talk to a therapist. Yes, I said it. Talk to a therapist. Now, here's what I'm going to say about calling a friend. You may want to call the friend that is a optimist,
Definitely.
right? You want to call that friend that's optimistic. Because if you feeling woe is me, and you talk to your friend who's feeling woe is me, what you go?
Yeah, you're both gonna be down. Yeah,
You
yeah.
both gonna
This is
be
that one situation where math don't work. Two
right.
negatives don't make a positive. Yes. You know what I mean? It's just like,
You'd be like Eeyore, right? Eeyore,
yeah,
you remember from Winnie the Pooh?
yeah,
Yeah, you both would be. That's who you both would be, like Eeyore. Okay, so, um, but yes, join a support group. Find your tribe. Really, find your tribe. They're out there. They are out there. People are out there. Make art. Okay, paint, draw, write a story, write a poem. Creativity is it's relaxing. Creativity is cathartic, right? Creativity is a release. Okay. And yes, call someone who can give you some solutions. Is that's true on the connection part. Brown Eyes over here on the Tiki Talk said, call someone who can give you some solutions,
mm,
right? Not just, and that's some one thing I'll do if I going back to connect, right? When I'm having a day or a moment where I'm grieving, I will call, or when I make my phone calls to someone, one of my people, because I have quite a few of my people, I have a few people, right? I ask them if they can hold space for me while I vent or while I um, talk, talk about my day to just get it off my chest. Now, you will hear some people say, "Oh, that's not a good thing because you speak life and death." Okay. However, if you keep it bottled up, right? If you keep it on the inside, what you gonna do with it?
yeah,
If you don't let it out, sometimes you have to let it out, and then if you know how to cancel it, cancel. If you don't, well, ride the wave. I mean, that's all I can tell you, right? Back to making art. Like, you remember when you were in elementary school and you made artwork, whether it was whatever crayons you have, it didn't matter. And I was not one for making, like having my sons color in the lines. However you color it, you color. It's your creativity. You do what you want to do, right? I love their artwork. But it was just so fun. It takes you. I have an adult coloring book. I haven't used it in a while. She said, I haven't used it in a long time, but I have a couple of adult coloring books. And you talk, and I used to use them. I used to use regular coloring books when I worked at Comcast. or Xfinity as it's known today, when I was talking to customers. And if I had a customer that was highly upset and I just let them vent, I was coloring. I would color, even though I would have their account information up. But when they would go on a rant or a tangent, I, I would sit there and color because I wouldn't be. I couldn't listen. You know what I'm saying? I would
Yeah.
listen for keywords, right? And I would, okay, I understand. I completely understand. My apologies. I'm so sorry. But I'll listen for keywords. And then once they finished, then I already knew what the issue was. Then I would go ahead and fix it. But I would let them go on their rant. And while they were on their rant, I would color. And I had quite a few of my coworkers were into that. We would do that. We had one coloring book, and we would make copies of the sheets and pass them out. Everybody had crayons like that was in my little cube area, and we would do that. And we were able to like really ease through the day like that, believe it or not. So move your body, right? Dance, walk, stretch. Do you all know that trauma lives in your bones, in your limbs, and in your muscles? Did you know that? Did y'all know that? Did you know trauma lives in your limbs? It lives in your limbs. I don't know. I don't know. Well, hopefully my phone won't die because I'm down to 22. But we keep going. I don't know what that is. But trauma lives in your limbs. People don't realize that. Trauma from the first time that you are traumatized to the current time of your very last trauma that you've experienced, it lives in your limbs. It lives in your hips. It lives in your elbows, in your joints, in your shoulders, in your muscles. You ever find that when you're angry or you're having a bad day, your shoulders are very tight and tense? Have you ever experienced that, cousin Kareem?
Yes, indeed. That is a stressful time.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to learn how to,
Your
you
body
know,
moves.
for me, what I like is the
Mm-hmm.
beach.
Be going to the beach.
Yeah, I find that,
Mm-hmm.
that's a great release. If you live, I'm saying this for people who live near the shore. Just the
Mm-hmm.
sound of the water. If you sit down and you meditate and you hear. Yesterday I went to the beach
Mm-hmm.
and my kids were clowning me because they were like, "You fell asleep in the chair for an hour." I know I wasn't asleep for an hour, but I was asleep for about a half an hour. Just
Right.
sitting in the chair, my head back, just knocked out. You know what I mean? It was just,
Mm-hmm.
but it was relaxing. Just hearing the waves come in, go out, come in and go out, and it made me knock out. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's a beautiful thing.
It is. And even if you don't live on the coast or on a shoreline, if you can get to a body of water like a lake, or use YouTube, pull up ocean sounds, pull up rain sounds, anything that will help you relax your mind from dealing with societal chaos. Also, we're moving on. So we talked about naming your feelings in dealing with societal chaos, connecting to your person, your people, support groups, talking to a therapist, art, making art, right? Take yourself back to preschool, make you some art,
Yeah.
right? Write, draw, create, whatever, however you want to do it. Maybe come to high school, write some poetry, right? Um, Move your body, dance, walk, stretch, get them things out, get stretch. Let me tell you, when I tell you that I started stretching in the morning. I have a yoga chair, right? If you don't know what a yoga chair is, I can't pick it up to show you, but it's
Just Google it. Yeah.
yeah, right. Google yoga seat, yoga, and it's not just the pillow. It's a um, it's raised off the floor because I do have an injured knee. So my sitting on the floor with my legs crossed is it's a little difficult. So I'm up off the ground, off this it's about a foot off the ground, raised up with the cushion, and it curves on the inside, and where that's how I cross my legs, and my knees are up, so the pressure of the weight is not on my knees. And what I've started doing was after my meditation, I will take one leg and cross it while I'm still on the yoga cushion, right? On the yoga seat, and put it to, yeah, it's on the floor. The chair's on the floor, and put it to the back of me, behind me. And so I have one knee. So it's a simulating one knee in front and one leg behind bent. And I stretch from that position, stretch my hips from that position. And then I switch. I'll bring the other foot, bring the right foot forward, put the left foot back beside, behind me, and I'll stretch back and I stretch forward and do it again. And then I'll switch again and hold for like 20 seconds to really like open up my hips, because I'm at the age where my hips are getting stiff, y'all. I know I don't look it, but I am that age where the body starts to get stiff. Yes. Yep, it is on the floor. It is. It is. And the vibration plate. Yes, if you have a vibration plate, so that's part of that movement. Also, set boundaries, especially with media, toxic conversations,
Yeah,
people who invalidate your feelings. Set boundaries,
definitely.
people.
I,
Set
I think
boundaries.
I think people feel because somebody is talking to them that they have to engage, or somebody, you get those office conversations where you're supposed to be working and everybody stops working to engage in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody says you have to engage. There's no rule that says I need to move away from my terminal, computer section, whatever, and engage in this conversation, because
Mm-hmm.
it might be something that somebody says ignorantly, and they're saying it ignorantly because they don't understand the situation of the conversation. Like we
Right.
were talking about before about war going down range. So why even engage with an ignorant person? And then so now, um, there's a scripture in the Bible that says if you correct a fool, then you are a fool. But if you don't correct a fool, that also makes you a fool. You have to decide on a point of, do I need to educate this person, or do I need to just ignore this person and let them go ahead in their ignorance and foolery? Because it's not
Mm-hmm.
worth it. It's not worth your peace to say, I need to go in there and try to teach this person or whatever. You're
Battles.
not,
Right.
yeah, you're not gonna correct everybody. You're not gonna get it right with everybody. You're
Right.
not gonna reach everybody.
No.
So why even engage?
Your battles. As
Yeah,
big this passage just said, pick your battles, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Set boundaries. And the final, light a candle. So honor the lives of the lost. Okay. Even if you didn't know them, small acts do matter. So, for example, you said, what is it, Jazz? You don't engage at all. You said and set boundaries, right? Yes. However, setting boundaries works for you, that's what you do. Light a candle for and honor the lives of the lost, those individuals that has lost their lives. Now, I'm one that when I'm driving down the road, if I see a car on the side of the road, my immediate statement is, Father, Mother, God, I pray that that driver is safe and all occupants are safe. Now, do I know what happened to the people in the car? No. They could have just had a flat tire or ran out of gas or whatever it is. But that is my way of seeing, of sending vibrations of protection to those individuals. If I ride past a car accident, that's something else. I say that this simple prayer to, you know, send vibrations of love and healing to people that's been in a car accident. If I ride past that car accident and I say, Father, Mother, God, I pray that the occupants of those vehicles are safe. Okay. Um, the other thing is you're talking about setting boundaries. So communication has become a huge, what I want to say, commu-
Conundrum for some people.
Conundrum.
Yeah.
Conundrum. Yes. You know what that word means, y'all? Conundrum. Okay. So not only, and when I say, okay, what am I looking to say? Do you know there are apps out that will tell you if there is an event, not a happy event, an event happening in your area where you live? Okay. And and for some reason I subscribe to like the neighborhood emails, which I'm going to unsubscribe from because it's too much for me. They're always sending out emails, right? Somebody lost a dog. Somebody stole a scooter. It's always something going on in the neighborhood. Now, for some people, that's great. You want to know what's going on in your neighborhood 24/7? Knock yourself out. Auntie Mimosa goes to work. She comes home. She goes to work. She comes home. If I'm out in these streets, it is at an organized event. That's where Auntie Mimosa is. Okay. Like this morning, I went to a Juneteenth event where I volunteered for the Girls Who Brunch Tour. Girls Who Brunch Tour, right? Okay. So, but that, again, that's another thing that is, when you talk about societal chaos and grieving from societal chaos, that can be a lot on you. Okay. Uh,
Mm.
my ex, you know what I'm talking about, had had this app on his phone that every time there was police involvement or pew pew in the neighborhood, it would alert. And it got on my nerves. I didn't have the app on my phone because I just cannot deal with that kind of information all the time. And it frustrated me so much that I told him, please take the app off your phone because take it off your phone because now you're concerned because there was a pew pew 2 blocks over about going out. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I mind my business. I go to work, I come home. I go to work, I come home. If there's an event, I go to the event, I go to work, I come home. Once I close my door, I'm shut off from the world for the day. That is it. Right? That's it. Okay. So here's some words for the weary. Right? Okay. If no one's told you this lately, you're allowed to grieve. I'm going to say that again. You're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to rest. Hey, Sassy. You're allowed to feel too much and still not have the words.
Mm.
Okay. And you are not alone. I'm going to say those again. You're allowed to grieve. Right? You're allowed to rest. You are allowed to feel too much and still not have words. And you're not alone. Even in the middle of chaos, love, hope, and healing are still possible.
Yes.
Right?
Let me ask you. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
When so in my line of work, I
Mhm.
deal with a lot of complaints.
Mhm.
But when does your grieving? I think the only warning I would say is if your grieving now causes you to become sensitive to things around you that you become a nuisance
Mm-hmm.
to other people. There's a lady I knew, well, I didn't say knew, that I used to interact with quite often because she lost her husband and she was grieving.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't want anybody parking near her house. So she went as far as to designate her small 50-foot corner.
Mm-hmm.
She went and made it so that, because it was in Hawaii, we got rounds. We don't have square corners, we got rounded corners.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not supposed to park within 20 feet of those round corners. Now, because her little street was only right next to her house, was only 50 feet, that only leaves 10 feet. So literally only one tiny car can park there.
Mm-hmm.
But she
Mm-hmm.
went as far as to have the sidewalk painted. And then she went as far as to call cops on people. All because she lost her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody, all the friends that she thought he had, didn't come to check on her. And I found this out randomly through conversation with her. And so the grieving process for her was, I'm going to make everybody pay
Mm-hmm.
for losing my husband. I'm going to make everybody who does what this forced infraction next to my house, I'm going to make them pay. I don't know them, but I'm going to make them pay.
Right.
And that was like, I know this is not on that topic, but it was the most negative form of grieving, because now you're causing other people to grieve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because their car got towed.
Right. 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 It's a reaction. It's an action. It's a consequence to that, to her grieving.
Yeah,
That it was a rippled effect.
so she never dealt with her own grieving in her own time, in her own way. She felt that was the way she's going to grieve.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at it like, if your grieving is going to affect somebody else's life,
Mm-hmm.
kind of, you got to contemplate that. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you, I don't know. Yeah, that's the question. The question is, what are your thoughts on people who outwardly grieve to the point that they now affect somebody else's life negatively?
Wow. So
Is that a whole other topic?
it kind of is. It kind of is. Hey, hey, Brown Eyes. I have Brown Eyes Girl. She is on TikTok. Brown Eyes, do you have anything to say as we approach our closing on this topic matter?
No,
Uh oh. What happened? Hang on.
Oh, what? What the?
Mm,
Oh, that's not me.
what happened? No, it's not you. Hang on.
my phone,
Okay, there you go.
my phone been freezing up, and so I've been in and out sporadic. But
Hmm.
everything that I did here, I agree. You have to definitely reach out to someone who is more positive when you're having a moment or when you're having a bad, what we
Hmm.
quote unquote say a bad. You have to reach out to someone who more mentally stable at that time than you are. So
Hmm.
I like to be a person that come with solutions, not problems. So that's definitely one of the things that we should definitely do.
Right. I definitely agree with that. I agree. Definitely come
Yes.
with a solution. That's one of the big things. And then I think with and part of that is to ask if you can provide a solution, because sometimes people just want a sounding board, right?
Mm.
They just want they just want you to hold space, you know. Um so I have one of my TikTokers, they're asking you, cousin Kareem, that's my co-host, cousin Kareem, he's in Hawaii. And
Oh,
right, and uh I have Miss Clashy, she wanted to know if the lady sought grief counseling. So
no, she
well that
didn't. She didn't.
right.
From the neighborhood people, because I talked to people in the neighborhood when I had to deal with this complaint.
Mm-hmm.
She was just super bitter. She
Mm-hmm.
used to getting arguments about, you know, HOA type thing, but there was no HOA, and she was upset that there was no HOA. You know, so she's like, "Why you leave your garbage can out there?" And this is not a sister; this is an Asian woman, and it was just. But she lived in the mainland because her husband was in the military, so she got accustomed to military, you know, dress right, dress left type situations.
Right.
And so when you're in a civilian world, and she
Mm-hmm.
wasn't in the military, her husband was, but I guess technically she is too.
Right.
She didn't know how to separate the two. And
Mm.
then with him gone, she didn't have a sounding board like, look, babe, it's
Right.
okay. You
Right.
know, and that's how I heard that he used to handle her. He would baby talk her, and then she would calm down. Now that he was gone,
There was nobody to baby talk her.
yeah, there was no buffer at all.
Wow. Wow.
And she didn't have kids, so
Mhm.
seeing kids outside was what do you want, a trigger, because she never had kids. And
Wow.
so I tried to empathize with her and talk her down. And this is like over like a 2 or 3 month time.
Mhm.
Before, of course, she customarily cursed me out every time we would have a conversation. And at one point, I was just like, you know, it's not going to end well for you in this. If you didn't like the fact that your husband didn't have anybody there, you know, for him when he was going through his last hours, how do you think it's going to be for you?
Right.
And it was at that moment, I think she heard it, even though she cursed me out, because the complaint stopped. I thought she died. I did a wellness check on her.
Right.
And you don't have to complete somebody complain over a
Mhm.
year and a half time every week to
Right.
just that stop. I thought she, you know, went on, you know, and I was
Wow.
like, I did a wellness check. She's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I haven't heard from you this week. She goes, I had nothing to complain about. And it was just like, and then from that point on, until she actually did go on,
Right.
and I took like 3 years later after that, I never heard anything. And it was a weird situation. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think what I said, she finally heard, you know.
Right. Right. Hey, Classy, how you doing, dear?
Good afternoon, good morning. I don't know where everybody's at, but God is good and His mercy is everlasting.
Right there is.
Of grief, right?
Yes.
Let me tell you, you either you get somebody to talk to, you go to grief counseling, because that's what we had to do with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
When my sister died, and then a year and a half later, my dad died. 10 months later, my son-in-law died.
F1.
My grandmother.
F1.
My mom couldn't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't turn her grief into anger. But we would be looking for her, calling her cell phone and everything. And one of my sisters decided one day, to just follow her,
Mm-hmm.
to see where she was going every day,
Mm-hmm.
and just sitting. She was going to the cemetery and just sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
My mom had stopped taking her medicine and everything. So I came up with the bright idea with my sisters and my brother before he passed. We need to get her into some sort of grief counseling.
Right.
Being in the military or having a husband or a wife that's in the military, and God forbid they die or whatever, the military world of families that are left with nothing but a box sometimes because they can't find the body. So you're burying an empty box.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to process that grief. They never get to see their loved ones again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I was like just reading through the comments about and listening how she would take her anger, and I can't say anger, her grief she turned her grief into anger to take it out on everybody. And to be honest, she needs grief counseling and she needs it bad.
Right. Right. Definitely. Well, that's what we're here for. You know, that's why I started this podcast. And because so many people do not know how to, or they don't have anyone that they can talk to about their grief or share their grief with.
Yeah.
Um And as many of my listeners know, and friends and family know, and I say this, is that I um is that my with my loss, it started with my younger sister. Then my younger sister transitioned tragically from a brain aneurysm. Then my oldest sister, she transitioned as a result of brain cancer. Then a year later, I lost a year later, I lost my mother um, due to kidney failure. Then I want to say, and then in that same year that my mother made her transition, a week after that, my cousin's grandmother made her transition. She was like a grandmother to me. Then we lost a friend of the family. Then 1 month to the day of my mother making her transitions, I lost two aunts, one that morning, one that evening. And then 2 weeks later, the lady that took care of my mother when she was ill, she transitioned. Then let's fast forward to 2021. My oldest son was tragically unalived. And then 4 months later, and that was May 21. And then September 9th, I lost my grandmother. So when you talk about compounded grief, and then in between those that are very significant to me, in between those, other family members and other friends and other, and associates. Um, so when it comes to compounded grief and knowing what grief is, I I know it all too well. I know it all too well. And I just know that when it comes to dealing with it, um, this is an outlet. Sometimes we bougie, sometimes we hood is an outlet. It's a healing. It's healing for me. Um, Cousin Kareem, how about you?
Oh, it's healing for me too, definitely. Just things that I never really thought about. I thought I was handling it right until we had this conversation. You
Okay.
know, and one thing that this knucklehead I knew, the good thing I say out of knowing him is he taught me one thing, that
Mhm.
laughter, you should laugh. Laughter makes healing. I don't know, for me, I can watch a comedy. There's like certain movies, TV shows that that always make you laugh. For
Mhm.
me, when I'm feeling a certain kind of way, generally anger,
Mhm.
that's just my thing. Um, I look at something funny before I go to bed
Mhm.
because it eases my mind, eases the stress. I notice it rolls off of me after that. It's like, is it really that bad? Of course, these things are fantasy. Most TV
Mhm.
shows and stuff like that. Wilding Out, love that show. Shout
Mhm.
out to Nick Cannon. But yeah, that's it's laughter for me. It kind of it's like a teleportation device. It will
Mhm.
move me into a different space, literally, mentally, and
Right.
sometimes spiritually.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's what I've learned. Uh, I recognize it. I accepted it. That's what actually is going on with me uh,
Right.
in these times of grief. You know,
Right.
and, I never said that before on the show, but yeah, but that's one thing that I maybe it will work for you. I put that advice out that maybe watching a comedy or when you got that one friend who can break the silence,
Mhm.
and make you laugh at
Right.
something. They got that relationship with you. They can remind you of something silly that you did, and
Mhm.
that generally breaks. For some people, I know that breaks the grief.
Right.
It's you got to have that comedy relief.
Right. All right. So we definitely went over time for a little bit, but just to kind of recap everything and close out the show. So, of course, we talked about defining grief of society, right? Which is collective grief. And it's what we feel when we witness suffering, and not just in our homes, but across borders, mass shootings, political division, injustice, climate disasters, the ongoing trauma of racism. It all weighs on us and it counts as grief. Grounding through the noise, right? Acknowledge it. Do some grounding. Turn the TV off. Turn off social media for a while. First thing in the morning, you know what I'm saying? Don't if you can refrain from turning the TV on, do your prayer, your meditation. If you need, just check the weather on your phone. Don't scroll, don't do anything, do any of that. Just get your mind right for your day. And kind of relinquish any, societal grief from the night before from watching the news. You know what I'm saying? Um, we all deal with some type of social injustice. There's specific grief that comes with social injustice, with racial trauma and activist burnout. I said outburn, sorry. Um, like we said, rest is to resist, joy is to resist, healing is resistance. Okay. And then what can you do? Name your feelings. Say it out loud, write it down, connect, call a friend, join a support group, talk to a therapist, make art. Take yourself mentally back to elementary school, okay? Draw, paint. It don't matter. It don't have to be perfect. It's yours. It is your artwork. Move your body, dance, walk, stretch, not stress, stretch, because trauma lives in the body. It lives in the hips. It lives in the shoulders. It lives in the neck
Joints.
muscles. It
Yeah.
lives in the joints. Stretch, move your body, dance, walk, get it out. Okay. Set boundaries, especially with media, toxic conversations, or people who invalidate your feelings.
Mm.
Okay. That is key. Light a candle. Okay. Light a candle to honor lives that are lost, even if you don't know them, because small acts do matter. And then with that, the words for the weary. You're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to feel too much and still not have the words. You are not alone in this. Even in the middle of chaos, love, hope, and healing are still very possible. So, with that, I say thank you for joining us today on this journey through grief, healing, and remembrance. Grief is not something we simply get over, it's something we learn to carry, something that shapes us, and something that teaches us about love and resilience. As you move through your own process, remember, be patient with yourself.
Mm.
There's no timeline, there's no right or wrong way to grieve. Honor your feelings, embrace the memories, and allow yourself space to heal in your own time. If today's episode resonated with you, love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to reach out, share your story, or let us know how grief has shaped your journey. And if you know someone who might need this conversation, please share this episode with them. You can reach us on Instagram or IG at Queen of Life Empowerment or SBSH Grief Podcast. Okay. On Facebook at Sometimes We're Boujee, Sometimes We're Hood, and on TikTok, the SBSH, Sometimes We Bougie, Sometimes We're Hood, or Sometimes We Bougie and Hood. And remember to like, follow, share, comment on the platform that you desire. We look forward to hearing from you. And that's Cousin Kareem and Auntie Mimosa. And like I said, Cousin Kareem is all the way in Hawaii. We 6 hours ahead of Cousin Kareem. All right. And remember, love doesn't mean carrying the impossible. It means showing up imperfectly again and again. Until next time, be kind to yourself, hold space for your emotions, and remember, You are never alone in this journey. Grief is love with nowhere to go, and you deserve all the care in the world.
Yes, indeed.
So, with that being said, I love you all. Take some time to breathe, be easy, stay off of social media in the news. You can't
Know your limits. Know your limits.
know your limits. Love you all. Have a
You
good
guys
one.
enjoy. Peace and hair grease.
Yep. It's a podcast dedicated to exploring the complex emotions of loss, the road to healing, and the strength found in remembrance.